Okay, just like with Cournot oligopoly, we went from the demand and cost structure of the industry right into the reaction functions and the leader's output function. We skipped a bunch of math. So let's go back and work through that math. Again, you'll never be expected to reproduce this math, but I think the process tells us something about the economics of where these equations come from, and that's instructive. So here we have the demand and cost structure for the business, for the industry. Okay, and then the leader, which is the dominant firm, just assumes that the follower has some sort of Cournot reaction function. Okay, and that equation is identical to the reaction functions that we've been using before. Okay, so the leader's revenue function is just like the revenue function of a Cournot oligopolist. Okay, but now, instead of not thinking too much about the output decision of the rival, we are going to think that the rival will react to what we do, where we are the price leader, the dominant firm. Okay, so the dominant firm believes that the Cournot the follower behaves according to the Cournot reaction function, so it will act as if it has substituted the Cournot reaction function into its revenue function. Okay, so that equation, that last equation there, has gotten pretty complicated, but it's just a revenue function with the Cournot reaction function substituted for Q2. Okay, but it is complicated, so the math, we're going to work through a bit of math here. Okay, so here I have repeated the equation, and in the second line, I'm multiplying through the demand slope through this big parenthetical. So A minus BQ1 minus B now times the Cournot reaction function. Okay, and then the third line multiplies the demand slope through the Cournot reaction function in brackets. Okay, so minus B times the first expression in the Cournot reaction function plus B times 1/2 Q1, the second term of the Cournot reaction function. And the sign changes because we have a negative multiplied by a negative. Okay, and then the last step on this slide, I'm multiplying Q1 through the term in brackets. Okay, so I've just added a Q1 term to each of the separate terms in brackets. So AQ1 minus BQ1 squared minus B times the expression in parentheses times Q1 plus, and here I've put B over 2. B times 1/2 is B over 2 times Q1 squared. Okay, and notice that the B's is highlighted B in the third term of this expression. Those will cancel. And so moving to the next slide, we have this as our total revenue function. Okay, and at this point, it's a lot safer to take the derivative to compute the marginal revenue function. So the first derivative using the power rule is the only calculus that we need. Okay, the marginal revenue is equal to A minus 2 times B times Q1. 2 times B times Q1 is the first derivative of B times Q1 squared with respect to Q1. Okay, minus just A minus CQ1. So the Q1 term goes away when you take the first derivative. And then the last term, we have an exponent of 2. So that comes out front of the slope expression for that last term. And then q squared, the first derivative of q squared is 2 times q, 2q. Okay, so we have this last expression here. And I've highlighted two terms that are going to cancel. Okay, so marginal revenue is equal to A minus 2B times Q1 minus this term in parentheses plus B times Q1. Okay, minus 2B Q1 plus B Q1 leaves us with minus B times Q1. So we can combine those terms. And so the marginal revenue is equal to this on the right-hand side of the last equation, last line of equations. Okay, so now we can set marginal revenue equal to marginal cost and solve for Q1. Okay, so in this second line, I've just gotten rid of the marginal revenue, marginal cost. In the third line, I've added B times Q1 to both sides of the equation. So we remove it from the left-hand side and adds to the right-hand side. And then I've subtracted minus C1, subtracted C1 from both sides. So we remove it from the right-hand side and minus C1 appears on the left-hand side of the equation. Okay, so Q1 equals A minus C1 minus this term in parentheses over 2 times B. Okay, so moving to the next slide, I'm going to multiply the left-hand side by 1. But it's a slightly more complicated form of 1. It's equal to 2 divided by 2. Okay. So everything I've highlighted here was the last equation on the previous slide. So we'll multiply that by 1, the left-hand side by 1, and then multiplying through 2 through the numerator, we get 2a minus 2c minus 2 times the numerator divided by 2. So I've highlighted the number that can cancel. And then that's divided by 2b. Okay, so Q1 equals 2a minus 2c1 minus a plus c2. So you can combine the terms of minus a and 2a. That leaves us with just a. And that's, the numerator is minus 2c1 plus c2 over 2b. And we can rearrange that a bit to get the leader's output function that we just dropped in a slide without any math associated with it.